guys, this is Gabe Dimmick from the Baseball Rebellion, and for today's swing breakdown, we're going to take a look at Eric Thames. He has had a crazy start to the 2017 season. If you followed it at all, you've probably heard this name. And Thames is a guy who over here on the left, you see him with the Blue Jays coming up through the minor league system, and then first couple years in the major leagues, he didn't do so great. He had a fairly low OPS. Struggled some in those early years, and then he actually went out and played in Korea for 3 seasons, and I believe he hit 37, 47, and 40 home runs in those 3 years. So he obviously figured some things out, or maybe the competition level just wasn't quite as good, in Korea, and so he flourished there, and he proved himself, and so he got another chance with the Brewers this year, and he's already hit 8 home runs, his highest career home run total in the major leagues. Prior to that was 12, and so he's already got 8, so he's off to a great start. So over here on the right is going to be Eric Thames for the Brewers this season, and over here on the left is him from the early Blue Jays days. And we're going to take a look at what, if anything, is different. Now, there's one major thing that I'm going to point out today that is different with Thames, and then one minor thing, okay? But I don't want to pretend like his swing dramatically changed from the beginning to now. He probably has become a better hitter from age and learned how to work counts and learned how to handle better pitching. And there are some small changes that have really helped him swing wise, but he was obviously still a good player to make it as far as he even did with the Blue Jays. So let's take a look at his early days or his early swing. So one thing you're going to notice is being different is check out here his back foot really being crazy turned in. Now, that's not something that I mind, especially if it's just a little bit, but when it's that turned in, it can really hurt your ability to release the hips and release the energy in your body to the middle and back side of the field. So you'll see a guy like Bautista do this, and it's actually interesting that he played for the Blue Jays, so maybe he was doing this from Bautista. So Bautista does this and crowds the plate like crazy, and he's just gotten really good at hitting those outside pitches to center, left center, pull side. Bautista has, and so he doesn't really need to use that opposite side of the field. But not everybody's built like that or has the ability to do that, and so sometimes over rotating that back foot in can hurt the middle away pitch, and you can find yourself struggling there. So we'll take a look here, and it's a little bit of a different angle, and you can see that foot still turned in slightly, and let's just go ahead and side by side it. But you can see that it doesn't look like Thames now is quite as turned in with that back foot just in his start as Thames was in 2012, 2013. So that's the minor change. Okay, let's take a look at the bigger change now. So you're going to see Thames over here in the Blue Jays uniform. You're going to see him, take a stride, and you're going to see his head move a little bit more. Okay, so this is where he lands, and you're going to see his head being basically right over his belly button. Okay, so his very center of his lower body. Okay, so he's not necessarily back in his body, not necessarily forward. So he has a very, I would say, neutral spine angle where he's straight up and down. You can also see that at this landing point, this back heel is still on the ground, and this back leg hasn't really quite turned in yet at his landing, so he could probably get a little bit more separation, and you can see that this front foot is definitely closed. Now, that's one thing that you're going to see here on this side, too, is that his front foot does land more closed than, I would say we would like. Now, what I will say here, though, is you can see that his front knee is also pretty closed here. Okay, so that's a little bit of a difference, too. So watch here on the newer swing where you're going to see him stride forward again with those hips, but he really lets those hips get ahead of his upper body and his head more. So when he lands, more into this position right here, that's his landing. You can see that heel getting in the ground there. Yeah, this foot's still closed, but this knee is just a little bit more open. Again, not a huge difference from before. Still would like to see him get a little more open because he is going to still be fighting himself on that front leg. But, I think that his head positioning is actually much different. So watch his head. So his head is much more over the back hip, and that spine angle over here on the left, which was more neutral, is definitely more lean back here. So what's that going to allow Thames to do better is it's going to allow him to turn the barrel down behind him this way, and then it's going to allow him to turn the barrel up as it comes through at a higher angle. So it's going to give him the chance to lift the ball better with more power because of that slight lean back that he sets up in his stride. Because by the time the bat actually comes around and makes contact, the force delivered through the ball is generally going to be perpendicular to the spine. So, when he makes contact here, you can see that spine is still leaned back because his head and the spine doesn't move as he turns. So you're going to see that barrel, again, is coming in that direction that is perpendicular. So over here on the left, you're going to see him make contact, and he's got a little bit of lean back going, but not quite as much. And so that the force that the barrel is being generated, the direction the barrel is being generated, the force of it is going to be a little bit flatter. And so just that ability to lift the ball better because of a different head position, I think is drastically changing his ability to have success. And again, there's other factors like I mentioned earlier, just more at bats, more years of handling, better pitching, things like that. But from a swing mechanics perspective, that little difference in where his head is being more back when compared to his lower body, is huge, and that's going to allow him to lift the ball with more power. So one thing I really want you to see is that he does that by, it's not that his head totally stays still. You see his head moving some, but once he goes to this little toe tap move in the front, he really lets those hips slide forward, and he really keeps his head back. Whereas, over here on the left in the Blue Jays uniform, he toe taps. Now watch his head continue forward more, and so that's that little difference. So once he puts that toe on the ground, if he would just keep his head back, in this video, I think he's going to set himself up for a better angle compared to over here. So it would look very similar to over here on the right. So we want to make sure that is something that's happening in your swing if you're watching. So you want to have this slight lean back at your landing. So it's okay at the beginning if the head is more forward or more of the front hip. I mean, you can see the head here being more of a forward lean, but by the time he lands again and those hips rotating right there, boom, right into his landing, you're going to see the hips opening, but again, the head more back at that position. So that's the big key. All right, so I'm going to switch over to just the full screen of the newer swing, because honestly, the upper body is the same all the way through for both swings. So the big difference though between before and now is that head positioning. Now, let's take a look. So once he lands, he does a great job of keeping his hands high and turning the barrel in a tight circle. So I talk about that a lot. So we want the knob to stay relatively still and only move because of the turn. And we want the barrel to turn as tightly around that knob as possible. We don't want a loose turn, a loose circle. We want a tight circle. So he does a great job. You can see the knob is still tight to that chest, and all he's going to do is as he turns his body, he's going to let those wrists go so that the barrel, it releases the barrel into the zone in front of the catcher's mitt and up through the ball. And you can see, again, like I mentioned before, that because his back foot maybe isn't quite so turned in at the beginning, that he is able now to release his energy more center backside. And so I've seen at least a few of his home runs be to center field and to left field, to the opposite field. And so he's not relying on just pulling everything now. And so he does a really good job of keeping those elbows apart. So you can see the space between the elbows staying the same as he turns. And, that's something that, we use the bat drag buster here, one of our products, for all the time, is keeping the elbows apart. Imagine that there's a band between these elbows, and we want to keep them apart, same distance all the way to contact, and then you can let the elbows come together and you can release that energy. But that's, the swing pass stuff he's always been good at, so it's more just getting the direction of his force being able to be more uphill so that he can generate more doubles, more home runs instead of maybe singles or outs or lower outs. So does a really good job of getting the lower body turning the head of the chest. He gets the bat going vertically toward the catcher, which is really good, before turning it more sideways up through the ball. And again, you can just really see the head staying back relative to the body. and really thrusting the back hip and the back leg through contact, and really just getting everything he has behind the ball. So, things that, we'd like to see him do a little bit better is just a little more open landing, less stress on this front side. But again, everything else, the sequence of the rotation, the swing path, the way that his arms and elbows and shoulders are working is incredibly good. And again, that major difference that's helped him a ton has been that change in head positioning at his landing relative to his lower half. So if you're somebody who's landing with your head more forward and you're hitting the ball, hard but low, well, use him as an example of a guy who changed to hit the ball a little bit higher and get those better launch angles so you can get better results. So guys, feel free to comment with any questions you have or any thoughts you have below on the article. And thank you for watching this week's Baseball Rebellion Swing Breakdown.